Hello and welcome to Daily Newscast. This is episode 7 for August 3rd, 2025.
That's right. And just a reminder, this podcast is designed especially for intermediate and advanced English learners.
We aim for a conversation that feels natural and real. We'll use current, accessible vocabulary.
Exactly. We'll speak a little slower than maybe our normal fastest speed, but still aiming for that natural sound. The kind of conversation you might actually hear.
So you can listen while you're doing other things, maybe cooking, walking, even working.
And if it ever feels a bit too fast, remember you can always use the playback speed settings on your player. Maybe try 0.75 speed. See how that feels.
Okay, so today we've got a mix covering 5 key areas. We'll start with some big news from the world of entertainment.
Then we'll look at art and a really interesting project transforming an old factory.
After that, sports, focusing on a setback for a major football star.
Then we'll shift to finance with an important health check on European banks.
And finally, science. Some truly mind-blowing images from deep space. Ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's kick things off then with entertainment. And this is some news that's really got Marvel fans buzzing.
Oh, yeah. What's happening in the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
Well, it's confirmed. Mark Ruffalo is officially returning as the Hulk.
Okay, that's always good news for Hulk fans. But where? In what project?
In the new Spider-Man film. It's titled Spider-Man: Brand New Day.
Wow, okay. Hulk in a Spider-Man movie. That is significant. Ruffalo's been Bruce Banner, the Hulk's human side, since the first Avengers movie back in 2012.
Exactly. But this is the first time he's specifically crossing over into a Spider-Man film within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That feels like a big step.
It really does. And that title, Brand New Day, it suggests maybe a fresh start or something changing significantly for Spider-Man.
Right. So how do you think a character like the Hulk, with all his immense power and, well, internal struggles, fits into Peter Parker's world? Spider-Man's stories often feel a bit more, street level.
That's a great question. I think it signals a huge increase in the stakes for Peter Parker. It's definitely a strategic move by the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They have this whole strategy, right? Integrating characters, weaving storylines across films and shows. It creates this big connected universe.
Yeah, they're masters at it.
So, bringing in a powerhouse like the Hulk, he's a founding Avenger into Spider-Man's story. It immediately suggests that whatever Peter Parker is facing in Brand New Day, well, it's probably way bigger than his usual villains.
So not just a local New York problem then?
Probably not. We might be talking about a threat or maybe a mission that needs the kind of raw power, but also the scientific brain that Bruce Banner brings.
Interesting point about Banner's intellect, not just the smashy part.
Exactly. So it's not just about adding another hero. It's about potentially expanding the whole thematic depth of Spider-Man's world. Think about it. Spider-Man usually handles city threats. The Hulk kind of implies something grander, maybe global, maybe even cosmic.
Wow. Pulling him deeper into those bigger Avengers-level conflicts.
It certainly could.
Yeah.
It suggests a much bigger landscape for this film than we've seen in his other standalone movies. It could, fundamentally change the scope of his personal story.
And it's not just the Hulk either. This film is turning into quite the reunion.
Ooh, who else is back?
Well, they've also confirmed John Bernthal is returning as the Punisher.
The Punisher?
Yeah.
Okay, that's intense. He has a complicated history in the comics with both Daredevil and Spider-Man, right?
Yeah.
Very different style of justice.
Totally. And Bernthal was last seen in the Daredevil Born Again series context, so bringing him into a Spider-Man movie is, wow, it's going to be fascinating.
Definitely adds a darker edge.
And wait, there's more. Michael Mando is reprising his role as the Scorpion.
Scorpion from Spider-Man Homecoming. We haven't seen him since 2017.
That's the one. So even though the title is Brand New Day, they're clearly weaving in these existing threads, bringing back characters, heroes, villains, anti-heroes, making it a really complex mix.
Yeah, it really sets up a potentially volatile ensemble, doesn't it? You've got Spider-Man, who's generally got this strong moral code, the whole no-kill rule.
Right, responsibility is his whole thing.
And then you throw in the Punisher. He's operating in shades of gray, uses lethal force. Their whole approach to justice is completely opposite.
So instant conflict right there. How do they even work together?
Well, maybe that's the story. Are they forced into some kind of uneasy alliance against a bigger threat? Or does the film explore that clash of ethics?
Could be really compelling.
And then you add Scorpion, who has a personal beef with Peter Parker. It just moves way beyond a simple hero versus villain story. It makes you, the audience, Think about these different moral codes colliding in the same universe.
Yeah.
How do they coexist? What happens when they clash?
It keeps things fresh, that's for sure, exploring what it means to be a hero, or maybe not quite a hero, in that world.
Exactly, how different ways of seeking justice might converge, or maybe just collide spectacularly.
Absolutely. So for you as a fan, the possibilities are just wide open, which is always exciting. And, to add to the hype, we've seen pictures of Tom Holland in his new Spider-Man suit.
Always a big deal for fans.
Right. Hints at the new look, the new feel. The film's being directed by Dustin Daniel Cretton. He did Shang-Chi and The Legend of the Ten
Oh,
Rings.
good choice. He handled action and character really well there.
Yeah, exactly. So Spider-Man, Brand New Day, is scheduled to hit theaters on July 31st, 2026.
Still a while away, but lots to look forward to.
For sure. And this kind of crossover, it's not just, throwing characters together. It really does enrich the whole cinematic universe for us, opens up new stories, keeps things
It
evolving.
definitely expands the stakes, brings in different viewpoints, and deepens the story for a character we thought we knew. It shows these universes can still surprise us.
Definitely still full of surprises. Okay, let's shift gears now and turn our attention to the world of sports. We've got some news from the football pitch, or soccer pitch, depending on where you are, and it involves one of the biggest stars on the planet,
Oh, what about?
Lionel Messi, the Argentine superstar who plays for Inter Miami.
Ah, Messi. What happened?
Well, during their Leagues Cup match against a team called Club Nicasa, he had to leave the field.
Injured.
It seems so. It happened really early in the game, too, just the 11th minute. Looked like a hamstring injury.
Oof, hamstring injuries are always tricky, especially for explosive players like Messi.
Yeah, you could see he was frustrated. He hit the ground, then walked off. Federico Redondo came on to replace him.
So what's the official word? How serious is it?
His coach, Javier Mascherano, another famous Argentine player, of course he confirmed after the game that Messi felt discomfort. That was the word he used, discomfort. And that tests would determine how bad it is.
Discomfort. Okay. In sports terms, that's often used when it's maybe not a sudden, sharp pain indicating a major tear, but definitely something's wrong.
Right. So what does that usually imply for recovery, especially with hamstrings? And considering Manning is, 38 now?
Yeah, age is definitely a factor. Hamstrings are just crucial for sprinting, stopping, changing direction, everything football demands. They're very common injuries because of that. Discomfort might mean a minor strain, maybe a grade 1 injury, but the risk is that if you don't manage it perfectly, it can easily get worse, become a partial tear, or lead to recurring problems.
So caution is key.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
especially for a player like Messi. Even a minor issue needs careful handling to avoid a longer timeout. Recovery usually starts with rest, ice, compression, elevation, then very gradual rehab, strengthening, stretching, getting back to football-specific movements.
How long could that take?
Depends entirely on the grade. A minor strain might be a few weeks, something more serious could be months. So those tests are crucial.
And this isn't entirely out of the blue, is it? There's been talk about his workload.
That's true. He's been dealing with fatigue lately. Remember, he skipped the Major League Soccer All-Star game because of it?
Right. And that actually led to a one-match suspension from the league.
Yeah. The league rules are strict about participation in those events. He also missed an earlier Inter-Miami match against Football Club Cincinnati, specifically for rest.
So it really sounds like his body might have been signaling it needed a break. This hamstring issue could be related to that accumulated fatigue.
It really highlights that constant challenge for coaches and medical teams, especially with superstars like Messi. It's a very delicate balancing act.
Oh, so.
Well, you want your best player on the pitch, obviously.
Yeah.
He wins games, draws crowds, but you absolutely have to protect his long-term health, prevent a minor issue becoming a major one.
And top athletes often want to play through things, right?
Definitely. Especially someone with Messi's competitive spirit. They often have a high pain tolerance. Mascherano even kind of alluded to that. He said, let me get the quote right, he is someone who would rather play than rest. And perhaps if you make him rest, he feels worse.
Interesting. The psychology of it. Some players feel better when they're playing, even with aches.
Yeah, staying in rhythm, feeling productive. So the coach has to figure out, is this just a minor thing he can push through safely? Or is playing going to risk a much bigger injury? It takes constant communication, monitoring data, and sometimes making a tough call for the player's own good.
So despite Messi going off early, how did Inter Miami do in the match?
They actually managed to win. It went to a penalty shootout against Club Nicasa, and Miami came out on top.
Wow, okay. That shows some resilience from the rest of the team.
It does. But obviously Messi's status going forward is the big question mark now.
Right. What are their upcoming important matches?
They have a final crucial group stage match in the League's Cup against Pumas UNAM, and then a Major League Soccer game on August 10th against Orlando City. His availability for those is now uncertain.
His absence would be a huge blow, wouldn't it?
Absolutely massive. I mean, his impact on Inter Miami has been transformative. He's got, 18 goals and 7 assists in league play. He's a front runner for the league's most valuable player award.
He basically is their offense, or a huge part of it.
He's the focal point, the primary playmaker, the main goal threat. Without him, especially in the knockout stages of the League's Cup, they'd have to completely change their approach, maybe play more defensively, rely on the collective effort much more.
Test the whole squad's depth.
Exactly. We've seen it before. Even great teams can struggle when their key players out.
Yeah.
So for you, the fan, these decisions about player health versus playing, they directly impact the team's strategy, the excitement level, and maybe the final results of these competitions. It really shows how much one superstar can influence everything.
All right, let's move from the pitch to the world of finance. We're looking at a recent report that gives us a kind of health check on a major part of the global financial system, Europe's banks.
Okay, important stuff. What's the report?
It's from the European Banking Authority. They've just released the results of their 2025 European Union-wide stress test.
Ah, the stress tests. Those are always significant. How many banks were involved this time?
It was pretty comprehensive.
Yeah.
64 banks from 17 countries in the European Union and the European Economic Area.
And how much of the system do they represent?
Quite a lot, about 75% of the total banking assets in the bloc. So it gives a pretty good picture of the overall system.
Definitely. Now, for listeners who aren't deep in finance, can you maybe unpack what exactly a stress test is in this context? Why do they do them?
Good question. Maybe you can explain that best.
Sure. So think of a stress test like putting the banks through a simulated crisis. It's not a prediction of what will happen, but an assessment of how they would cope if things got really bad economically.
Like a fire drill for banks?
Sort of, yeah, but much more complex. They create a very severe hypothetical negative scenario. In this case, the scenario involved things like renewed geopolitical tensions, more trade problems like tariffs, supply chain issues causing shocks, and a global economic contraction. Basically, a really rough few years.
Okay, so a worst-case simulation.
Exactly. They run this scenario over a 3-year period, 2025 to 2027, in this test, using the bank's financial position at the end of 2024 as the starting point. The goal is to see how much capital the banks would lose under that severe stress.
And crucially, could they survive it? Could they keep lending money?
That's the core question. Can they absorb massive losses without failing and needing bailouts? And can they still support the economy? It helps the regulators, the supervisors, identify weaknesses before a real crisis hits. It's a proactive safety measure.
Got it. So they simulated this tough scenario. What was the main finding? How did the banks do?
Well, the headline is that, despite the severity of the scenario, European banks generally showed strong resilience.
Resilience, even though they have faced huge potential losses.
That's right. The report estimated the combined losses under this scenario would be a massive 547 billion euros.
Wow, 547 billion.
A huge number. But, and this is the key point, despite absorbing those hypothetical losses, the banks remained well capitalized.
How do they measure that capitalization?
The main measure is something called the Common Equity Tier 1 ratio, often shortened to CET1. Apologies, I know we said no acronyms. The full name is Common Equity Tier 1 ratio.
Okay, Common Equity Tier 1 ratio. What does that tell us?
It basically measures a bank's core capital, its highest quality capital, like shareholder equity, against its risk-weighted assets. It shows how much loss it can take before becoming insolvent.
And what was the result for that ratio in the test?
At the end of the 3-year stress period, the aggregate Common Equity Tier 1 ratio, so averaged across all those banks, stood at 12%.
And 12% is considered strong.
Yes, that's generally seen as a strong level, indicating they could absorb those huge losses and still have a solid capital buffer. Interestingly, this result was actually better than the previous stress test in 2023.
How come? Why were they stronger this time?
A big reason was higher net interest income. That's the money banks make from the difference between the interest they charge on loans and the interest they pay on deposits.
Ah, so the higher interest rates we've seen recently actually help them build up profits before the test.
Exactly. That extra income helped offset some of the massive losses projected from bad loans and market shocks in the adverse scenario. It shows the system had a bit more cushion going in.
So they started from a stronger base this time, better profits, more capital than in past years. That makes sense. Did the report highlight any specific areas where they were still a bit vulnerable?
It did. While the overall picture was resilient, the report noted that the biggest hits came from credit risk. That's the risk of borrowers defaulting on loans, and market risk, which is the risk of losses from fluctuations in financial market prices. Those were the main drivers of that 547 billion euro loss figure.
Okay. But the overall structure is sounder now.
Definitely. And that really comes back to the massive regulatory reforms put in place after the 2008 global financial crisis.
Right. Things like needing to hold much more capital.
Precisely. European banks were forced to raise huge amounts of capital, become less reliant on debt, hold more liquid assets. It fundamentally made the system much less risky than it was 15, 20 years ago.
And the interest rate environment helps too, even if rates are coming down slightly now.
Yes, because while rates might be falling from their recent peaks, they're not expected to go back to those ultra-low or even negative levels we saw for years before the pandemic. A more normal interest rate level is generally healthier for bank profitability in the long run. So you have stronger banks operating in a slightly more favorable rate environment.
That combination seems key. Were there any standout banks mentioned in the report?
Yes, a few were highlighted for performing particularly well. Ireland's two biggest banks, Allied Irish Banks and Bank of Ireland, both finished the test with very strong common equity Tier 1 ratios, 13.4% and 13.9%, respectively.
Well, above that 12% average.
Comfortably above. And several Dutch banks like ING, Rabobank, and ABN AMRO also showed strong resilience. ABN AMRO, for instance, even reported a healthy net profit in the first quarter of this year.
So what does that mean for those stronger banks and maybe for investors?
Well, banks with higher capital ratios, well above their regulatory minimums, generally have more flexibility. They're in a better position to potentially return capital to shareholders through dividends or by buying back their own shares.
Oh, okay.
And beyond just capital, these leading banks are also focusing on other things. They're working on being more cost efficient. They're investing heavily in digital transformation. You see things like ABN AMRO's Tikkie payment app in the Netherlands, which is hugely popular.
So becoming more modern, tech-savvy banks.
Exactly. And they're also focusing more on sustainability, linking loans to environmental goals, supporting green transitions for businesses. That aligns with the big global trend towards environmental, social, and governance, or ESG investing. It's not just about being resilient now, but positioning for future growth in a changing world.
It's important to remember, too, as you said, this stress test isn't a simple pass or fail exam.
Correct. There's no single threshold they have to meet. It's more of a diagnostic tool. The results feed into ongoing discussions between the regulators and each individual bank about their capital levels, their risks, their plans. It's part of a regular supervisory process.
So why should our listeners care about all this? What's the takeaway for them?
Well, fundamentally, a resilient banking sector means a more stable economy for everyone.
How so?
When banks are strong and well capitalized, there's more confidence in the system. They're more willing and able to lend money, whether that's mortgages for people buying homes or loans for businesses looking to grow and create jobs.
So it affects real economic activity.
Directly. It impacts interest rates on loans, the availability of credit. A stable banking system underpins economic confidence and growth. And for investors, it suggests less risk of major financial shocks originating from Europe, which is positive for global markets overall. It touches everything.
Okay, let's shift gears now to something really interesting, especially if you love design, architecture, or just seeing old things get new life. This is a story from the world of art and culture.
Intriguing. What's the story?
There's an organization called the Eames Institute of Infinite Curiosity, and they've just announced plans to transform a pretty famous building in Novato, California, into a world-class art and design museum.
Eames Institute, dedicated to Charles and Ray Eames, the famous designers.
Exactly. The legendary designers known for their iconic furniture, architecture, films, just incredible creativity.
Wow. And what's the building they're transforming? You said it was famous.
It is, especially in the Bay Area. It's the former Birkenstock factory.
The Birkenstock factory.
Yeah.
Really. I can picture it, that distinctive building with the white sort of sawtooth, triangular peaks on the roof.
That's the one. A real mid-century landmark. It sits on a large, almost 90-acre campus just north of San Francisco. It was originally designed back in the 1960s by an architect named John Savage Bolus, actually for the McGraw-Hill Publishing Company originally.
Okay. I can see the visual connection. That mid-century industrial aesthetic.
Mm.
It feels like it could be a really fitting home for an institute dedicated to the Eameses.
Right. There seems to be a real synergy there.
Absolutely. Charles and Ray Eames were just giants of American design. Their work is everywhere, even if people don't always realize it's theirs. The Eames lounge chair is probably the most famous example.
Iconic.
But their philosophy went so much deeper than just making cool stuff. They saw a design as a way to solve problems. They believed curiosity was like a superpower driving innovation. They were all about experimenting, iterating, finding elegant solutions, whether for a chair or an exhibition.
So taking this functional, architecturally striking industrial building and turning it into a hub for design and creativity, it feels like it embodies their whole approach.
It really does. It's a fantastic example of adaptive reuse, taking an existing structure, respecting its history, but giving it a vibrant new purpose that actually aligns really well with its original innovative spirit. It's about building for the future while honoring the past.
And the Institute's plans sound amazing. It's not just going to be a stuffy museum.
What are they planning?
They envision the buildings becoming home to immersive art exhibitions, but also things like makerspaces.
Ah, places where people can actually create things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Collaborative workshops, tools, resources for making prototypes, art, whatever. Plus, educational programs focused on creativity and problem solving.
Sounds very hands-on, very Eames-like.
Totally. And they're also planning accessible public open space, places to eat, retail, and crucially, they'll display a big part of the actual Eames collection and the family archives.
So you get to see their actual work and process materials. That's fantastic. It sounds like it'll be a really dynamic cultural hub.
It really does. Much more than just looking at things behind glass.
And who's handling the architectural redesign? Transforming an old factory into a modern museum complex is a huge challenge.
They've brought in a top-tier firm, Herzog and de Meuron.
Wow. Herzog and de Meuron. They're huge. They did the Tate Modern conversion in London, the De Young Museum in San Francisco. They know how to handle these kinds of transformative projects.
Yeah, exactly. They're working with a San Francisco firm called EHDD as executive architects. And their focus is explicitly on that adaptive reuse concept.
Meaning they'll try to keep the original building's character.
Yes. The goal is to maintain its iconic look, especially that distinctive roofline, while integrating all the new functions needed for a museum, public spaces, workshops, etc. It's about balancing the history with modern needs and sustainability.
That's a really thoughtful approach. Breathing new life into it without erasing its soul. It also feels very aligned with the Eames' own resourcefulness and approach to materials.
And it seems like there's a real commitment to the local area, too. The CEO of the Eames Institute, John Carey, called it a transformational step and the culmination of a long-held dream. He stressed their commitment to the North Bay community.
That's important.
And Lisa Demetriou, she's the chief curator, but also Charles and Ray Eames' granddaughter, she said how honored she is to share her grandparents' vision through this project. It really feels personal, like a legacy project.
It sounds like it. And what about the local impact? How are officials in Novato and the surrounding Marin County reacting?
They seem thrilled. They view it as a potential major economic driver.
How so?
Well, it's expected to create jobs during construction and then ongoing museum operations. It should significantly boost tourism to the area. And it brings life back to this big site that's been mostly empty since Birkenstock left in 2019.
Ah, so it fills an economic gap, too.
Exactly. It fits with the city's long-term plans to develop more cultural destinations. So it's not just about art and design, it's also strategic economic development for the region, using its own architectural heritage as a catalyst.
That's a brilliant way to do it. Preserving history, creating a cultural anchor, and boosting the economy all at once.
Yeah, and for you, the listener, it really makes you think, doesn't it? How design impacts our lives every day, the spaces we use, the objects we interact with. How preserving architecture through smart reuse can create these vibrant new hubs.
How can a space like this inspire creativity, not just for designers, but for everyone in the community? It shows design isn't just about looks, it's about function, community, even economic health.
Okay, for our final segment today, let's turn our gaze outwards, way outwards, to the cosmos. We're heading into the realm of science. Because the James Webb Space Telescope has done it again, something truly astonishing.
Ah, the James Webb Space Telescope.
Oh.
Always delivering incredible results. What has it found now?
It's captured these revolutionary images of some of the oldest known galaxies ever observed, including one they've nicknamed Maisie's galaxy.
Oldest known galaxies. How old are we talking?
Incredibly old. These aren't just pretty pictures, they're like looking back in time. Maisie's galaxy apparently named after the daughter of the project lead, Stephen Finkelstein, which is kind of sweet.
That is nice.
It's estimated that we're seeing it as it was just 290 million years after the Big Bang.
290 million. That's incredibly early in cosmic history. The universe is about 13.8 billion years old, so that's like seeing the universe in its absolute infancy.
Exactly. Just a tiny fraction of its current age.
Wow. That is revolutionary. Why is seeing galaxies that early so significant?
Well, maybe you can explain the science here better. It challenges existing ideas, right?
It absolutely does. If this finding holds up and it needs more detailed analysis, like spectroscopy, to be fully confirmed, it suggests that galaxies started forming much, much earlier than many astronomers previously believed.
So our models of the early universe might need adjusting.
Potentially, yes. For a long time, the standard cosmological models pictured a more gradual buildup of structure. Seeing relatively well-formed galaxies this early, at what astronomers call redshift 14, that's a big deal.
Can you explain redshift simply?
Sure. As the universe expands, the light from very distant objects gets stretched out on its journey to us. It shifts towards the red end of the light spectrum. The amount of this redshift tells us how far away the object is, and therefore how far back in time we're looking.
So higher redshift means older and farther away?
Exactly. Redshift 14 means we're seeing light from when the universe was less than 300 million years old. It gives us an unprecedented direct look into that very early primordial era. It's not just confirming theories. It might actually be forcing us to rewrite parts of them.
And these new James Webb images, they build on work done by Hubble, right?
Yes, definitely. The Hubble Space Telescope gave us those amazing ultra-deep field images years ago, which were groundbreaking at the
I
time.
remember those blew everyone away.
They did. But the James Webb Space Telescope is designed to see infrared light, which Hubble couldn't see as well. Infrared light is crucial because the light from these extremely distant early galaxies has been redshifted so much that it falls into the infrared part of the spectrum by the time it reaches us.
Ah, so Webb can see things Hubble simply couldn't.
Precisely. It can peer deeper into space and further back in time. Using its instruments like the near-infrared camera and the mid-infrared instrument, it can reveal structures and phenomena that were invisible before. One of the new images actually covers an area of sky about 8 times larger than Webb's famous first deep field image from 2022.
8 times larger. That's a huge increase in its field of view for this kind of deep observation.
It's an incredible leap in capability. It allows scientists to find more of these rare, extremely distant objects.
So what are scientists learning from analyzing Maisie's galaxy specifically, besides just its age?
Well, the initial analysis suggests a few fascinating things. One is very active star formation happening within it.
So lots of new stars being born even that early.
Yes, surprisingly intense rates may be forming stars at a rate of about 25 times the mass of our sun every year.
Wow.
And perhaps even more significantly, they're seeing signs of what astronomers call metal enrichment.
Okay, you have to explain metals in astronomy again. It's not like iron and gold, right?
Right. In astronomy, metals basically means any element heavier than hydrogen and helium, the two lightest and most basic elements formed in the Big Bang itself.
So things like carbon, oxygen, nitrogen.
Exactly. Those heavier elements are forged inside stars through nuclear fusion. When massive stars die, often in huge supernova explosions, they scatter these metals out into the surrounding space.
So finding metals in Maisie's galaxy means?
It means that at least one generation of massive stars must have already lived, created these heavier elements, and died before the time we're observing Maisie's galaxy, which is already only 290 million years after the Big Bang.
That's incredibly fast. A whole cycle of star birth and death happening that quickly.
It implies very rapid stellar evolution and chemical enrichment of the universe happening extremely early on. These galaxies, while ancient from our perspective, might have been relatively young themselves, maybe only around 15 million years old, but already buzzing with activity and containing the processed materials from even earlier stars. It paints a picture of a surprisingly dynamic and rapidly evolving early universe.
It just changes that picture of the early dark ages of the universe, doesn't it?
It really does. It suggests things got lit up and complex much faster than we thought.
The scale of it all is just staggering when you stop to think about it. These images show thousands of distant galaxies, and each one of those little smudges of light could contain billions of stars, and potentially billions of planets around those stars.
It's profoundly humbling, isn't it?
Yeah.
It puts our own existence into cosmic perspective.
Absolutely.
And scientifically, these observations are invaluable. They provide the actual data, the hard evidence needed to test and refine our theories about how galaxies formed and evolved from the very beginning. Webb is giving us the chance to study the universe when it was less than 300 million years old, a period we could previously only guess about.
So we're seeing the first steps of cosmic structure formation.
We're getting glimpses of it, yes. These surprisingly luminous and massive galaxies being present so early on. It's a puzzle that cosmologists are now eagerly trying to piece together. It might mean our understanding of dark matter, dark energy, or the initial conditions of the universe needs tweaking.
So for you listening, it's a chance to connect with that immense history, the sheer scale of the universe.
Exactly. It's a powerful reminder of how much we're still discovering about our origins, about the cosmos we live in. These aren't just abstract scientific findings, they're glimpses into the infancy of everything. It's an invitation to wonder, to be curious.
Wow, what an incredible range of topics we've covered today on Daily Newscast. We went from the interconnected world of the Marvel Cinematic Universe
Mm-hmm. With Hulk joining Spider-Man.
to the physical challenges and team impacts in elite sports with Lionel Messi's injury,
Then the resilience of the European banking system under simulated stress.
the beautiful transformation of an industrial landmark into the Eames Institute for Art and Design.
And finally, gazing back almost to the beginning of time with those stunning images from the James Webb Space Telescope.
Each story really offered its own unique insights, didn't it?
It really did. And if you step back and connect the dots, what strikes me is this relentless pace of discovery and change everywhere. From understanding how the first galaxies formed billions of years ago,
Yeah.
to seeing how our own society constantly evolves, our financial systems getting stronger, our cultural institutions finding new forms, even our entertainment becoming more interconnected. It's all moving so fast.
That's a great point. It makes you wonder.
What's next, right? What questions does all this raise for you, listening now? What do you think the next big breakthroughs will be? In space exploration, in how we manage finance or health, in art and culture. Where will the surprises come from?
Definitely lots to think about. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. Thanks so much for listening to Daily Newscast.
We really hope you found it interesting and useful for your English learning. We'd love to hear what you thought, what you understood, what stood out to you. Please feel free to leave a comment.
Yes, please do. And if you enjoyed it, please remember to like and subscribe. There's a new episode every day.
That's right. Tomorrow there will be another daily newscast, so it is definitely worth subscribing so you don't miss it. Thanks again for tuning in.
See you next time.